May 13, 1943. 1640 hours. Near Infidèle, Tunisia, the desert wind cuts low across the sand, carrying the smell of burnt oil and cordite. A column of German soldiers trudges forward, boots sinking into the powdery earth. Their uniforms are torn, faces blackened by smoke, eyes sharp but hollow. They have just laid down their weapons. Lieutenant Karl-Heinz Richter, 24 years old, Afrika Korps, grips his steel helmet under one arm as an American MP waves him toward a temporary holding area. The American wears a loose-fitting uniform, sleeves rolled up, chewing something slowly. Gum Richter notices it immediately. Gum, he exchanges a glance with Feldwebel Otto Kruger, a veteran tanker who fought from El Alamein to Kasserine. Kruger smirks. So this, he mutters in German, is the American soldier. Around them, dozens of German POWs are being searched. No shouting, no beatings, no barking orders. The Americans move casually, almost lazily, handing out cigarettes, offering water from canteens that seem impossibly full, to men who survived Rommel's retreat under constant air attack. This feels surreal and laughable. Richter would later recall thinking the same. Thought many of them shared in that moment. These men are not built for a long war. They had been taught this long before capture. In Wehrmacht briefings, in Nazi propaganda films, in letters from home. Americans were portrayed as wealthy, spoiled, soft. Factory workers turned soldiers. Men who relied on machines instead of discipline. Comfort instead of sacrifice. The gum-chewing soldier only confirmed it by nightfall. The prisoners are loaded onto trucks. The engines hum smoothly, too smoothly. The vehicles are clean, well-maintained, each one identical. Still, the Germans dismiss it as surface polish. They had seen plenty of equipment abandoned by inexperienced American units during earlier fighting in North Africa. Kruger leans close to Richter as the convoy moves. They fight with numbers, he says quietly, not skill. Once Germany turns fully east again, this will end. Richter nods. He believes it. He needs 2. 3 weeks later, they are no longer in Africa. The air inside the transport ship smells of metal and sweat. The Atlantic rolls beneath them, unseen but felt in every sway of the hull. Guards tell them nothing, only that they are going west, America. When they finally disembark, it is not what they expect. The harbor is massive. Cranes move like iron giants, lifting cargo with effortless precision. Ships arrive, unload, and depart in steady rhythm. No chaos, no confusion. No air raid sirens. The Germans stand on deck, silent now. Still, the mockery lingers. Kruger whispers, looks impressive. But show me how long they can keep this pace. They are herded onto trains. Long ones, endless lines of rail cars stretching farther than Richter can see. Each car is clean, painted, marked with numbers that make no sense yet as the train pulls inland. The landscape changes: green fields, rivers, towns untouched by war. And then, the factories. At first, it's just smoke on the horizon, thick columns rising into the sky. Richter assumes damage, perhaps an industrial accident. Then the train slows, and he sees it. A complex of buildings so vast it defies scale. Windows glowing even though it's still daylight. Rail spurs feeding directly into loading bays. Trucks moving in and out in constant flow. No pause. No gaps. A guard notices the Germans pressing toward the windows. That's Ford, he says casually. Willow Run. The name means nothing to Richter yet, but the sight does. Inside those walls, B-24 Liberator bombers are being assembled. One every hour. Sometimes faster, the train moves on. Another factory. Then another. Steel mills. Engine plants. Tank depots. Shipyards along rivers far, for many ocean, and then night falls. The lights do not go out. They grow brighter. Shift change happens seamlessly. Workers pour in as others leave, the machinery never stopping. The Germans watch sparks fly from welders, conveyor belts moving endlessly. Cranes swinging with mechanical certainty, Kruger's smirk is gone. Richter feels something tightening in his chest. Not fear, not yet confusion. Double quotes, how many of these places are there? Someone whispers in German, no one answers. At the POW camp in the American Midwest, life is comfortable, too comfortable. They receive regular meals, meat, bread, coffee. They are allowed to work for pay. Newspapers are available, censored but informative. Guards are firm but calm still. The Germans cling to one belief: discomfort is weakness. They will tire, Kruger insists weeks later. They cannot sustain this. No nation can. Then the camp commander announces a supervised work detail. The Germans will assist at a nearby industrial facility, not as punishment. As labor, the buses arrive at dawn as they approach the plant. Richter sees the same thing again. Smoke, lights, movement, but this time they go inside. The noise hits first. A constant, thunderous rhythm of presses, drills, and engines. The air smells of oil and hot metal. Assembly lines stretch so far they disappear into the distance. An American supervisor explains their task. Shouting over the din. This line makes M for Shermans. That one does engines. Over there. Transmissions. Kruger stares at the line. A tank hull rolls past every few minutes. Every few minutes, he does the math in his head. Stops. Tries again. It doesn't make sense. Richter watches. American workers move with practiced ease. Men and women. Old and young. None in uniform. None afraid. Just relentless. A siren sounds. HFLINCHES. It's not an air raid. It's lunch break. The machines slow, but do not stop as the line keeps moving. Richter feels the first crack in everything he believed. Not about soldiers, but about the war itself. And standing there, surrounded by steel and motion. One question begins to form quiet, terrifying, impossible to ignore. How do you defeat a country that fights like this? The machines that never slept, the siren fades, swallowed by the roar of machinery. And the line keeps moving. Richter watches a Sherman hull glide forward. Steel plates already welded. Its turret ring gleaming under rows of overhead lights. Workers step in, bolt components with practiced speed. Then step away as the tank moves on, never stopping, never waiting. You can almost feel it in your chest. The rhythm, the certainty. Feldwebel Kruger stands beside him, arms crossed tightly now. No jokes, no muttering. His eyes follow the line, calculating again. But this time, the numbers don't offer comfort. An American foreman approaches, clipboard tucked under his arm. He speaks slowly, clearly, as if addressing equals rather than prisoners. 3 shifts, he says. 8 hours each. This line runs 24 hours a day. Sundays, too. Kruger asks the question before Richter can stop him. How many factories like this? The foreman smiles, not proudly, not arrogantly, just matter of fact. This one. It's medium-sized. The words land heavier than any insult. Over the following weeks, the Germans are rotated through different facilities. Engine plants, steel mills, rail yards, each one larger than the last, each one operating with the same relentless discipline at a foundry. Richter watches molten steel poured into molds destined to become artillery barrels. The heat is suffocating. American workers wipe sweat from their faces and keep going. No overseers with whips. No shouted threats. Just a schedule and the quiet expectation that it will be met. During a break, Richter sits across from a machinist named Frank Delaney, a man in his 40s with grease-stained hands and a wedding ring worn thin. Frank lights a cigarette. "Offers one to Richter, for your boys overseas," Frank says, gesturing vaguely eastward. "This one's headed to Europe next month." Richter hesitates, then takes it. "You don't worry about bombing." Richter asks carefully, "Sabotage?" Frank chuckles. "They'd have to reach us first. It's not bravado. It's logistics." Back at the camp, conversations change. The early days were full of mockery. Americans were fat, undisciplined, obsessed with comfort. Now the jokes feel hollow, repeated out of habit rather than belief. One evening, Richter sits at a wooden table with Kruger and several others. A copy of Life magazine spread open before them. Photographs show rows of ships under construction, Liberty ships. The caption reads, "One ship every 4 days." Someone translates aloud. Kruger shakes his head. "Impossible." Richter points to the photo. "Then, explain this." No one speaks. They begin to realize something deeply unsettling. Germany had planned for a war of resources, of rationing, of sacrifice. The American economy wasn't sacrificing, it was accelerating. The realization deepens during a supervised trip through a rail hub near Chicago. The Germans stand behind a fence as trains thunder past, each one loaded with tanks, trucks, fuel drums. Crates marked for the 8th Air Force, the Red Ball Express. The Pacific Fleet, the sheer volume is dizzying. Richter overhears an American officer explaining to a junior lieutenant how schedules are synchronized coast to coast. Raw materials in, finished weapons out. Delays measured in minutes, not days. Kruger grips the fence so hard his knuckles whiten. "This is not an army," he whispers. "This is a machine, and machines do not get tired." Letters from home arrive weeks later. Richter reads, his mother's careful handwriting by lamplight. She speaks of ration cards, of factories damaged by bombing, of neighbors sent east to work. Between the lines, he feels exhaustion. Strain, hope stretched thin. He folds the letter slowly across the barracks. Another prisoner stares at his own letter, eyes hollow. "They say production is increasing," the man murmurs. But they do not say how much. Richter knows the answer: not enough. One afternoon, an American chaplain gives a talk at the camp. He speaks about the war, about sacrifice, about duty. At the end, he invites questions. Kruger stands. "You say your people are tired of war," he says, in careful English. "Yet your factories do not stop. Why?" The chaplain pauses, considering. "Because," he says finally, "we believe ending it faster saves lives. Yours too." The words hit Richter harder than expected. Ending it faster, not winning. Ending, the final blow, comes quietly. During another factory shift, Richter notices a chalkboard near the supervisor's office. It lists production goals for the month: tanks, engines, aircraft components. At the bottom, written in neat block letters, next month's increase, plus 18%. Richter stares at the number. Increase, not recovery. Not replacement, growth. He imagines the Eastern Front, Kursk, endless fields littered with burned-out armor. He imagines German factories struggling under bombs, scrambling for skilled labor, patching machines older than this war. Then he looks back at the line, still moving, still flawless. For the first time since his capture, Richter understands something with terrifying clarity. Germany is not losing because of bad generals or unlucky battles. Germany is losing because it cannot outbuild what stands before him. And once you see that truth, you cannot unsee it. That night, Kruger finally speaks the words no one has dared to say. This war, he whispers into the dark barracks, is already decided. Type continued to generate the next section. Continue Section 3. The realization. No one could report home. Silence settles over the barracks like dust. Kruger's words linger in the darkness, heavy and irreversible. No one argues. No one laughs it off. Some men turn on their bunks, facing the wall. Others stare upward, eyes open, seeing not the wooden ceiling above them, but endless factory floors lit through the night. Richter lies still, listening to the distant hum of generators beyond the camp fence. Even here, in the quiet countryside, America does not sleep. Days later, an American officer arrives with a stack of newspapers. The headlines are bold. Sicily invaded. Allied bombers over Germany. Production records broken again. The Germans gather around as one of their own translates softly. A photograph catches Richter's eye. It shows a line of bombers stretching across the sky, contrails forming pale scars against the blue. The caption lists the number. The figure is so large it almost seems like a misprint. Kruger exhales slowly. "We used to count aircraft by squadrons," he says. "Now they count by the sky." Work assignments continue, but the tone has changed. The Americans still treat the prisoners with calm professionalism, but now there is something else: confidence. Not boastful, not cruel, just assured. At an engine plant, Richter is stationed near a testing bay. One after another, Packard-built Merlin engines roar to life, their sound smooth and powerful. Each one is destined for a P-51 Mustang, a name Richter recognizes all too well from Luftwaffe reports. He watches a technician log serial numbers, each engine tagged, inspected, approved. "How many today?" Richter asks, almost against his will. The technician checks his sheet. 212. "That's just this plant." Richter nods, his throat dry. 212 engines. Today, some of the Germans begin keeping quiet tallies in their heads. Others stop counting altogether. The numbers have grown beyond comprehension. A former logistics officer, Hauptmann Ernst Vogel, gathers a few men one evening. He sketches in the dirt with the stick arrows, factories, ports, rail lines. "They can lose a convoy," Vogel says. 2, 10. It does not matter. Their system absorbs it. He draws a circle around the American continent. No bombs here. No front lines. Just output. Someone asks the question they all fear. How long until it reaches us in full force? Vogel doesn't answer immediately. "Soon," he says finally. Sooner than Berlin thinks. Letters home become harder to read. Sensors black out sections, but what remains is enough. Bombing raids are heavier. Trains delayed. Materials scarce. Skilled workers gone. Richter wants to write back, to warn them. To explain that this is not a war Germany can mathematically win anymore. But what could he say? They build faster than we can destroy. Their factories never stop. We are fighting an economy, not an army. None of it would pass censorship. Perhaps none of it would be believed. So he writes about the weather, about camp routines, about staying healthy, and leaves the truth unspoken. One afternoon, the POWs are allowed to listen to a radio broadcast under supervision. The voice crackles through the speaker, announcing new ship launches on the American coasts. Liberty ships, escort carriers, tankers. The announcer lists tonnage figures with casual ease. Kruger closes his eyes. "I commanded a single panzer," he says quietly. "It took months to replace when it was lost." He opens his eyes again. They replace fleets in weeks. The Americans do not hide their methods. Richter notices training films played openly in factory break rooms, films explaining workflow optimization, time motion studies, error reduction. Civilian women are shown learning complex tasks in days. There is no mystery, no secret weapon, just scale and cooperation. One evening, Frank Delaney sits beside Richter again during a break. "You ever think about what you'll do after the war?" Frank asks. Richter hesitates. "If there is an after." Frank nods. "There will be. This country's already planning for it, planning for peace, while Germany still scrambles for survival. The final realization arrives not with noise, but with absence. A week passes without news of any German counteroffensive. Then another. The newspapers speak only of Allied advances, new landings, expanding fronts. Richter realizes something chilling. The Americans are no longer reacting. They are dictating tempo. Kruger says it one last time, this time aloud in daylight. "We thought comfort made them weak," he says, watching trucks roll past the camp fence. "But comfort is what lets them work without breaking." Richter follows his gaze. Convoys stretch to the horizon, unbroken, endless, and in that moment, surrounded by abundance and motion, Richter understands the cruelest truth of all. By the time Germany realizes what it is truly facing, it will already be too late. Type continue to generate the next section. Continue section. For when the mockery died, autumn arrives quietly in the Midwest. The leaves turn gold and red beyond the barbed wire, and the mornings carry a sharp chill that reminds Richter of home. But nothing else feels familiar anymore. The camp routine continues, orderly and predictable. Roll call. Work details. Meals, yet beneath it all, something has shifted. The Germans no longer speak of victory, not even in whispers. The mockery is gone. It happens gradually, almost invisibly. A guard jokes about the Detroit Tigers. No one laughs. A new group of POWs arrives from Italy, still carrying the arrogance of men fresh from the front. They scoff at the American uniforms, the easy smiles. Kruger watches them with a strange expression. "Give them time," he murmurs to Richter. "They will see," and they do. Within days, the newcomers are taken on the same routes, past the same factories, into the same deafening halls of steel and fire. Richter watches their faces change the way his once deed first disbelief, then calculation, then silence. One young lieutenant grips Richter's sleeve as they leave a tank plant. "How many of these places?" he asks, voice tight. Richter doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. Winter brings longer nights, but the factories burn brighter than ever. From the camp's edge, the glow on the horizon never fades. The hum of distant industry becomes a constant presence, like the sound of the ocean, steady, inescapable. One evening, the POWs gather in the mess hall around a map pinned to the wall. Vogel has updated it with charcoal marks. Allied arrows push deeper into France, into Germany's allies, toward the Reich itself. No one pretends anymore. "This is what defeat looks like," Vogel says quietly. Not a collapse, a slow suffocation. The Americans announce a new policy. POWs, main role in education courses, engineering, English. Civics, the irony, is not lost on Richter. He sits in a classroom built of wood and chalkboards, learning the language of the country that is dismantling his own war effort piece by piece. The instructor speaks about assembly lines, standardization, interchangeable parts. Richter realizes something unsettling. This knowledge could have saved Germany years. But Germany never believed it needed saving. During one work shift, Richter is assigned to inventory crates bound for Europe. He reads the markings automatically. Normandy, Anzio, southern France. Fronts multiply like branches. He imagines German officers studying maps, desperately shifting divisions, unaware that behind every arrow lies an ocean of steel they cannot stop. Kruger joins him, lifting a clipboard with shaking hands. "We mocked them for being soft," he says. "But softness does not produce this." He gestures at the stacks of crates, the endless columns of vehicles waiting for transport. This, he says, is discipline without fear. The last illusion dies during a conversation Richter never forgets. A young American guard, barely 20, stands watch one night. He asks Richter about Germany, about Berlin, about the war. Do you think it'll be over soon? The guard asks. Richter hesitates, then answers honestly, yes. The guard nods, satisfied. Good. I'm starting a family. There is no desperation in his voice. No doubt, just expectation. Richter watches him walk away, rifle slung casually over his shoulder, confident that the future will arrive as planned. That certainty is something. Germany no longer has spring approaches. Again, newspapers announce the crossing of the Rhine. Production numbers climb even higher. The factories continue, untouched, unstoppable. One morning, Kruger stands at attention as an American officer reads an announcement. Berlin has fallen. No cheers. No shouts. Just silence. Kruger removes his cap slowly. So, he says, almost to himself, it ends the way it began. Richter looks out toward the horizon where smoke still rises, not from bombs, but from industry. No, he replies quietly. It ended long before. We just didn't know it yet. The camera pulls back. Past the camp, past the fields, past the factories still running, still producing. Now turning toward peace. Because the war was not decided only on battlefields. It was decided on assembly lines that never slept.